This week in comic books, over in the lands of DC, we get a relaunch of The Joker, Joker #1. And I don't know what our fascination is with having to have multiple Jokers out there, but here we go again. In the land of Marvel, we get more Spider-Verse because first appearances are slowly becoming a scam. We're going to chat about that for just a quick hot second. And in the land of Independence, Junkyard Joe, my pick of the week. But not for what you would think, surprisingly. That and a load of other books. But first, White Shadow, what are you drinking over there, buddy?
Coffee brand coffee. Very good, must say. Go get yourself some.
You, sir, are the pride of the comic book community. Thank you for existing. Now that we got our yum yum water, let's jump into this week's haul and review. We're going to jump right in. First off, let me welcome you weirdos back for another week of comic book collecting and nerdom. I'm super excited that you're here, as always. So let's jump into it and let's talk about the Joker coming out, right? So I went ahead and went with the foily shiny. I had high expectations of this, so I was willing to fork over a few more shells for the fancier cover. And then I read it, and I was like, oh, we're doing this again. So the Joker's not allowed in Gotham City because all the other rogue costume gallery cats, they're like, no, we don't want you here anymore. And the Joker's like, fine, I'll take my gang and go elsewhere. Where does he go? L.A. Because he's got big plans to become basically a criminal franchise of some sort. Like he's just combing across the land. And he's going to take care of criminals now. But then again, given the warped and insane mind, there's no sense of justice or right. So obviously this is very wide scale. If you vaguely remember Fight Club, the movie, the ending, yeah, he's kind of doing that thing where they're just running around destroying everything. And then we get a sneak peek at Jack Napier. He's made a return as well. I don't know what this fascination. Just having one source of chaos makes sense to me. Throwing other ones in there with different personalities kind of takes away from the whole chaos aspect of it. Like you can go in any direction. Because now you have multiple personalities, which means they're all focused onto one theme. Whereas a #1 Joker, the Joker, a Joker, right, is just something that could be anything. It could be the tornado, it could be the hurricane, it could be the earthquake, right? It's just this constant different forms of disaster. I don't know. That just seems like a better Joker to me than this Joker does this, but he's also really kind of good. And
if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. Definitely. What are your opinions? Do you like this multiple Joker thing? To specify a time frame or different points of chaos? Definitely. Love to have that conversation. Moving on, Sword of Azrael. Azrael. So this is kind of getting interesting. We're doing a little spin off biblical history. Kind of diving into a little bit of the woo-woo mythologies of Christianity to some degree. And I'm not like making fun of the Bible here. Just, you kind of get all this other stories about the Bible surrounding it. In this one, we find out the origin of Satan, and Satan was actually a creation of something else. We also find a deep connection between the Knights Templar and the Saint Dumas cult, as well being there when the New Gods in the DC universe had their first battle, and the first boombox fell to Earth, and they were able to get their hands on it, and that's what created their warrior, which turned into Satan. Super good stuff. Azrael is in here as well, and she's kind of finding out, like, this is all kind of cultish and weird, because they're trying to make her on the Templar side of the house something like Azrael is, whereas Azrael is a representation of the hand of God for the Saint Dumas cult, or branch. They're both cults at this point, doesn't really matter. So yeah, so we kind of got the old one that's been doing it a while, a new one that's kind of being spawned, and then a mutual enemy, Satan, at this point. I still say that they're going to go with the Azrael's mission in this will be to coach and train the new generation, because that's the thing to do, right? That's the hot point right now.
Yes.
So I see that going in that direction. I kind of hope it doesn't. I would kind of like to see them be mortal enemies. I think that would be kind of cool. Like this fraction just widen between the two groups and the internal conflict that would come from it. I think that would be a more interesting story, but I could be wrong. I don't know. All right, so that's all the DCs I picked up because I have quite a few more books. I picked up a lot of books this week. So no further ado, let's jump into this. So Spider-Man relaunched into a #1, but haha, they fooled you.
I knew it! I didn't know that.
It's actually a Spider-Verse story. So if you like Spider-Verse stories, especially with the more classic characters that you know, right, you'll get that in this book right here. Of course, had to get a Scotty Young. Wife demanded this cover. You will get. I did, because I'm a good husband. I'm not real big onto the Spider-Verse thing. I know that somebody's I just felt that thumbs down button getting hit. But in this one, we have, of course, an ancient enemy that is based off the Wasp. They don't really tell you that. They just give her a new name. But it's basically the Wasp. And our characters have kind of flipped. So, like, Spider-Man Noir and a couple of other Spider-Verse characters are now kind of like more like symbiotes, if you will. But not. They've just been stung by this bee that makes them evil. And then we have old enemies like our vampire Spider-Verse character from a while back popping in, really trying to help the situation to show the gravitas of this entire Spider-Verse thing happening. And Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, she gets it. They unraveled her from the, what do they call it? The web of life or something like that. I don't know, some nonsense. I just really could not get behind this. And that's my fault. Like, it's not a criticism of the writer or the book in this. It's just there seemed like there was a whole bunch of other stuff you had to read. And again, I hate it. I'm not a fan. I don't hate it. I'm not a fan of when you tell me it's an issue #1 and then there's a bunch of prerequisites to review before you get into it. Because now I got, like, what am I supposed to do right now? I'm kind of lost. I don't know why people are doing the things that they're doing. A lot of action happened in here, a lot of cool stuff. But do I really want to go chase everything down? Also, about one of the coolest things I saw in here, right up off the bat where it talks about everything's random and all this other stuff. You all know I love my little bits of philosophy thrown into stuff. You get a lot of indeterminism in here. Basically, it just means that you believe that everything is just random. You know, your existence versus other existences, and that's your kind of base belief. It gets a lot more complicated than that, but that's pretty much what they were talking about here in the beginning. And of course, it's never good to be full on anything, especially that, because that can go wrong quick. But regardless, again, an alright story, but not really digging this whole having to find out everything else. Like, just give me a story already. Speaking of something, just as a catch-up for everybody, another Miracle Man came out. And of course, it's a Scotty Young cover. My wife, she was like, oh, look at the baby in space. And I was like, you really don't read comic books. So if you're a fan of Miracle Man, you're probably, or if you haven't read anything about Miracle Man in a while, you may want to go ahead and pick this up just as your refresher, if you will. It's in issue 0. It's just kind of like a launching thing. If you're not familiar, just kind of highlights what the whole mythos behind Miracle Man is about, right? Like, there's some meta points where he goes against himself or the writer as himself. You get Warp Smith in here, who's kind of like this, I don't know, he's kind of like the Rorschach / Question of space. It's the best way I can put it, but he's a robot. It gets weird. And the whole Miracle Man universe, as it were, is kind of a confusing mess to some degree, too. There's a lot of philosophical points in here that you can touch on, definitely. But in here, you get several stories that are just really there to kind of let you know what you're getting into as issue 1 comes up. In other words, it's a prerequisite, as I just said. Right?
Real piece of work.
But in this case, I don't mind it too much. I kind of like this deep type writing and where it goes in most cases. All right, next, Edge of the Spider-Verse, number 30. Number 5. And I got the 1 in 25 cover. We've all seen this, I'm sure. This is Silly Spider. It's his first appearance. Basically, it's meta, right? It's a little cartoon, comes to life and interacts with the world, if you will, in a silly, whimsical cartoon way. Basically, it's Peter Porker in his own world. That's it. Nothing really too highlightable there. Also, a web weaver is it here, which is nothing more than this is getting ridiculous. A 30-year-old wine lady, is the best way to put it, who's having troubles with the dating apps, and all the men are just horrible. And I'm just like, this is a narrative that has been pushed, a tropey kind of thing that's been pushed lately. We've seen it in She-Hulk and in several movies. And every time I see this, I have the same kind of analogy warping in my brain, right? Like, I live in Virginia, right? I don't go to the Virginia, when I go hunting, I don't go into the Virginia woods, right, to hunt a lion, right? Or something along those lines. And all this time, it's like, oh my God, the app can't match me with the right person. You know, maybe you're hunting in the wrong area. I'm just saying, it's so tropey at this point and montagey that it's not even interesting. We get it. The guy's boring, creepy, or just toxic. We got it. We got it. But if you're all hunting in the same place, an app on a phone, guess what you're going to find? The same three things. Like, broaden your horizons already. I'm 46 years old. I have seen enough of the dating montage thing. I really have. But yeah, so yeah, that happened. All right, going into Independence, still quite a few books. I kind of went all out on Independence this week. A lot of good stuff, a lot of recommendations from you guys out there that were DMing me or putting it in my comments. I appreciate it very much. I picked up a lot of what people were recommending, so I just want to say thank you. So we're going to go through this. Junkyard Joe, pick of the week. This is any veteran is going to get this story. It takes place during the Vietnam era. Obviously, it's a robot, but first he kind of looks like an everyday dude. It's real quiet. He's there for a specific mission to see if the war in Vietnam is even winnable. Come find out, not so much. The most important thing about this book, this is nothing more than the camaraderie that could happen between soldiers and the tightness that ends up happening, even if you're a cold-hearted machine, right? The straight-up combat machine, right? Like, that camaraderie is still there. Robot breaks programming or orders, as some people can argue, right, to go find revenge for his friends, you know, the ambush that happened to his friends. I don't want to give too much away. And this thing gets dark. I'm not going to lie to you. If you have a problem with robots deleting the younglings, you might have a problem with this book. It definitely, it hit the old feels. So definitely, I recommend this. Again, unless you have a problem with war in general, you're probably not going to be too interested in it. Okay, moving on. A book that was recommended to me, and I'm so happy I got to see this. I believe the creators of this comic book are going to be on one of the YouTube channels here soon. If I find it in time, I'll be sure to put its link in the description below. I really like what they did with this. This is Revolvers. So this is kind of cool. You get a gritty Detroit horror type scene, worst case scenario. Cop who kind of walks that line, you know, kind of danger, like half the characters in The Wire, if you remember that show. And they're going after this big time drug dealer / killer guy. Come to find out there's a whole nother side to all of this, and it's hell. It's always hell, right? So the killer now becomes kind of like the tour guide, Jiminy Evil Cricket of the situation in this. It's gory, it is gritty, and it's everything that independent comics used to be. Remember back in the 90s when they first started coming out? Yeah. It is all of that and some more. Definitely want to read more about this because there's an ancient revolver involved in this with a guy who has an affinity to use revolvers while he's on the job, along with shotguns and other things. But all in all, I enjoyed this. This doesn't even feel like a comic book to me. I feel like I should just be watching this on HBO Max or something like that. I think it would do great. All right, next, Sweetie. So this is dumb. it's just, so you know the comic book is written for adults, right? Because of the themes. There's a strip club in it. A lot of sexual innuendos dealing with candy. There's a straight up some pawing going on in here. If you don't know what pawing is, you know, you get handsy, right? And apparently our main character here, her gimmick is sweets and candy. Her weaponry is sweets and candy.
It's a block of sugar.
And she's a vampire. And she's kind of like a child who's prepping everything for something called the Ice Cream Bunny. I don't know. Graphic, violent, but just a little too cartoony for me. I can only take so many gimmicks at one time. I just didn't find this very interesting. It's definitely not for me. But definitely let me know what you thought of this. Don't let my judgment cloud you from picking something up or reading it. Definitely check it out yourself. If anything, flip to it in the comic book shop and let me know. Let me know what you think. Yes. There's big boobies in it. So I guess that's a good thing. Next, something I really enjoyed. Oh, I enjoyed it. Didn't make pick of the week, but I really did enjoy it. And I think I didn't make it my pick of the week because it was more of a world setup and story setup than it was an actual storytelling, like where Junkyard Joe told a story, the people went from point A to point B. This is just kind of letting you know what's going on in the world. And of course, I'm talking about Devilland, which is just a dark parody of Disneyland at this point. I really enjoyed this. There's a jacked up family. There's an evil theme park. Probably a deal with the devil going on in here. A murder right in the first few pages of this. And then a kid who just, his wish came true. And it turned into a nightmare as he's slowly burning in hell. Yeah, that happened. So yeah, this was... I enjoyed this. It was good. It hits its funny parts, but there's something in the background, right? That's what made this really enjoyable. All right, next I got Sirens Gate. This book confused me. I picked this up at the recommendation of somebody. They said the artwork's beautiful in it, blah, blah, blah. And the artwork is beautiful in this. This thing must have taken forever to draw on and do. Everything's done in this kind of deal. I like the word bubbles in it. They look like little text message boxes. Again, strip club. I don't know what it is about strip clubs lately. Like, everything's going on a strip club. But the book confused me, though. Because in the beginning, we kind of get a look at these futuristic soldier/police types, right? And it's futuristic because, right? You see she's using a hologram watch, right? And then she's driving around in what I can only guess to be mid-2000s Jeep Wrangler. That's what it looks like to me. Right?
Anyway.
I know, that's nitpicking, right? You could say, oh, you're just nitpicking. But there was nothing else in here to indicate that this was happening in any other time frame than currently, if anything. So, yeah. And the story's pretty bland. Like, again, I don't mean this as a criticism. Just as I'm reading it, basically, girl wants to be writer. She works in a strip club, has dreams to do bigger. Guy invites her to meet famous writer. Famous writer wants to kiss her. Leaves for some reason. Doesn't say that she didn't like it or anything like that. Just the next scene is her leaving the house. Werewolf fight between a werewolf and a guy. That was the extent of the story. Again, artwork really cool. I like the way they did the boxes in it. I just, it was like just flashpoints of a story versus, it was like a montage, I think is the best way, just an outright montage. Last but not least, I've been digging this Shock Shop. Basically, our host is a comic book oddities store type owner. They introduced us to 2 stories. We picked up where we left off last time, the haunted house family thing. Looks like the haunted house can leave the house and kill the stepdad of a divorced family. And probably one of the most it was graphic. Like the thing, it was just bad. I don't want to spoil it. If you haven't read it, I would definitely get on this. It's just a good horror.
I have goosebumps. Feel.
And our second story here was, well, depending on the way you do it, because they do the old flip box thing, was our story about the campers in the woods. So basically they realize something's wrong, something happened to one of their friends. They get again point A to point B, but these monsters or whatever in the woods can mimic them, use them as puppets, and it's just slowly taking everybody down. Just scary. If you have a fear of the woods, I can see where this would kind of get you. All right, guys, so that's my comic book haul and review for this week. Definitely let me know down below what you picked up and what you thought of your comic books. That's the important part. Or did you read any of these and what did you think? Do we have different opinions? Do we agree? I'm always happy to have those conversations. As always, down in the description below, you'll find my Evil Lair merch shop down there. Get yourself some of that Evil Lair swag. Right? Be styling out there. I got shirts with collars on them, kid. Just saying. It means you wear them to church. Probably shouldn't, but you could. Also, Coffee Brand Coffee, which is a real coffee company. I had to explicitly explain on the show. I was like, no, it's not an elaborate joke. It's literally a coffee. You get fresh roasted coffee you can have delivered to your house. Looks like they're going to have K-Cups coming out soon for all you K-Cup fans, both whole bean and, of course, crushed bean as well. Tons of flavors to choose from. My favorite is, of course, a nice medium roast in the morning. That's good coffee. All right, so I got nothing else. Oh, if you haven't already, go over to my Evil Lair Projects and Builds channel. We made something for DJ Links. That video just popped off here this week. So I'm super excited to make that, and I'll have that out in the mail probably today, actually. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. And that's it. I'm all done. All right, guys. Stay cool. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.